I'm so excited about today's encounter, friends. I'm not going to be singing or playing or anything, but I have a friend of mine, Beppie Summersgill, here to share her testimony. It's an amazing story. And so I hope you listen, and I hope you'll be inspired. And my devotions in the week following this video are going to also go on what Beppie says here in her testimony. So listen to it. And if you don't get the devotions, you can use the link below to take you into one of the devotion groups. I'm sure you'll enjoy them. I pray that God is going to speak to you through Beppie's testimony now, and I know that if you have your heart open, He's definitely going to.
Psalm 9, verse 1. I will tell of His marvelous deeds. That is God's marvelous deeds. I, Beppie Summersgill, am going to tell of God's marvelous deeds in my life. I was born to Dutch parents in Rhodesia in 1956, in a beautiful part of the country near the Chimani Mountains in Cashel. We lived there for a little while, and then we moved to Rhodesia Hot Spring, where I learned to swim before I was 2. Then we moved on to Chipinga, near the Tanganda Tea Estates. We lived there for about 20 years, and that's where I started school, in Chipinga Primary School. Grade 1, we started school when I was year 2 and 6. Grade 1, Infants 1, KG1 as it was called there, was a very happy year. I was top of the class, won class prizes. Grade 2 was a very good year too. Standard 1. Suddenly, I was writing things rubbish off the board. I was colouring leaves blue, and I was just generally a clumsy kid. My parents figured that it was actually I wasn't seeing properly. My mum and dad embarked on a mammoth trip of 500 kilometres to Salisbury to see eye specialists. The eye specialists were a bit troubled, and they suspected that my eye condition had been caused by bilharzia, a waterborne disease. My dad stopped us, fishing, playing in rivers, waterfalls. We weren't doing any of that anymore to try and stop this that had started. I underwent treatment. I got spectacles, which didn't help much at all. This definitely troubled everybody a lot more as well. My mum and dad then brought me all the way to South Africa, which in those days was a long trip as well, along narrow tar roads, strip roads, and into South Africa to see ophthalmologists in South Africa. Once again, a dead-end road. Nobody could explain why the spectacles weren't helping me at all. I continued in mainstream school. Sadly, I was teased a lot by the boys because I had to walk up to the board to read the board. I did participate in everything. Perseverance is the name of the game. I played tennis, hockey, netball, swam in the teams, did athletics, high jump, long jump, entirely with the encouragement of my parents, the motivation, the encouragement. I did horse riding with my dad. I cycled to school every day, despite many accidents, riding over rocks in the road, bumping things. But I still cycled to school and back, which was about 1.5 kilometers each way. Then I went to high school, but high school was not in Chipinga. High school was in Umtali, 200 kilometers away, and I went to Umtali Girls High. In fact, even though I was away from home and that wonderful comfort blanket and encouragement of both my parents, my dad was an agricultural engineer, my mum was an analytical chemist, but a stay-at-home mum for all my years of growing up. Yeah, at high school, the girls were definitely much better. At being at girls' school, I wasn't teased so much. The teachers became amazing. The teachers would even verbalize maths. Point A, this, point B, so many degree angles. Everything was verbalized. Once the teachers realized my need, it was a mainstream school. My needs were seen to. People would help me read my work, my textbooks. But on the whole, I struggled through that, holding things very, very close. Again, I participated in everything. Hockey, netball, swimming. I was in the school swimming team. The girls were amazing because when I had to start swimming in relays, and I wasn't the first swimmer. In the beginning, I was the first swimmer because that was easier to go with the gun. But then when I had to be the final swimmer, the girls would all stand around me and say, go, go, go! And we would invariably win. We traveled all over the country by train to Harare from Umtali, to Bulawayo from Umtali, to participate in swimming galas all over the country. When I wrote my O-levels, that was another story. My teachers had always written all my papers, all my exam papers, had handwritten my exam papers in large print by hand because, of course, there were no photocopying machines that could enlarge. Even the typewriter couldn't make larger print that I could read because I could only read big print. So all of that had always been done by my teachers. Now O-level came and my exams came from England and they did not arrive on the designated day. That was a real challenge for the teachers, but they rallied around like you have no idea. They got a local photographer in town to enlarge the papers to a size that I could read. So the first couple of papers that I wrote, Maths and English, were enlarged on the A2 photographic paper to a size so you can imagine how many pages of A2 photographs I had to enable me to read my papers. Thereafter, the papers arrived at the right school. There was another school across the country in Bulawayo where special needs children went, and that's where my papers had been sent to. And the next year, it was all in order as well that the papers arrived. But the amount of perseverance and help from everybody. And this is where it's so important to know that help is sent. God makes a way. Like he made a way for the Israelites through the Red Sea and so many other ways, God makes a way for us. He really does. And he gives us angels. Angels, helpers, whatever we want to call them, they are helpers along the way. As in the Bible, Moses with a stutter, he wasn't healed of his stutter. He was actually given Aaron to do his talking for him. And in that way, I have had so many people who've been able to read and help me and just help me through all of those conditions. And I really believe that God has sent each and every one of those helpers so many huge help, small help along the way. And then I went on to do M-level. I have 3 sisters, Karen, Pauline, and Desiree, who is much younger than I am. Karen was a year younger than me, but because she was in the A stream and I was in the B stream, we both wrote O-level at the same time, and then we both wrote M-level at the same time. When we wrote M-level, the hostel was very kind and let us use the teacher's duty room so Karen could read the maths and the geography that we were doing the same subjects together. So Karen could do a lot of reading and we could do maths examples together, and that made life a lot easier because the prep room for 70 girls was a place of silence and absolutely no talking could happen there. So that was a great help as well. I passed the M-level as well. And I'd always wanted to go to Teachers Training College to become a teacher. But I had been turned down. So then I decided, okay, I would do hotel catering because I loved cooking and baking. My dad did not think that that was a very good occupation for a young lady. But I did the first month practical. at a 5-star hotel in Umtali, the Cecil. And at the end of that month, I figured, yeah, my dad was right. I was not going to do this. On the way home, we actually spent a night at a resort and met somebody who was working in the post office in Chipinga. He was an engineer. And he said, so now what? I said, I don't really know now what, but we will see. We will see. He said, well, we need a new telephonist at the telephone exchange. Wouldn't you like to try that? Well, never say no. So I accepted and went and saw the supervisor at the telephone exchange the very next day. He said we'd give it a try. Now, this was an old-fashioned exchange. We are now talking 1975, where the exchange was just the plugs that you plug into one number and you take another plug and plug it into the other number to connect. So when you're feeling your way around a switchboard, that's quite tricky in an electrical storm. My dad used to go with me at night so that I could memorize the whole board. So we learned this whole switchboard off by heart. Absolutely. God has given me a memory that I can use. I have learned to use my memory. Some people say, oh, when you're visually impaired, you've got a better memory, you've got better smell. No, you have to learn to use. You've all got it, but we've all got to learn to use it. So listening and smelling and memorizing are definitely skills that we need to enhance to be able to live life to the full. As it says in John 10, verse 10, I came to bring life and life more abundantly. And God does that, absolutely. He has promised us eternal life. In John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that we should not perish, but have eternal life. And it is about the eternal life that we need to tell the world. God's love helps us through everything. And in his strength, I can do all things, Philippians 4:13. It is from all these different verses and all my Bible teachings that I've had the strength to go on, despite the circumstances. Some people say, how can you be so happy? No, because God has told us, rejoice in the Lord always. Be glad, no matter what our circumstances. Years ago, I used to think, not possible. But in God's strength, we can be glad through everything. When I left school, I met the love of my life, Cedric. And Cedric really has been an angel. I've always said to him, he is the wind beneath my wings. He has helped me to fly. He really has. My mum and dad were there in the beginning, my sisters. But Cedric, my husband of 43 years, has been there throughout. And from really, it was war years, and Cedric was in the army 6 weeks, out of the army 6 weeks. But when he was out of the army, he used to travel 120 kilometers every weekend and pitch his tent in the campsite and come and visit me and help me. He knew it wasn't just a joyride weekend. It was time to do reading, to help me do projects, to do and achieve what I wanted to achieve. After my telephone exchange, in that year, I still wished to pursue the teaching or something. I also thought of physiotherapy, but my parents contacted Dorothy Duncan, Home for the Blind, and with their help, we applied to Teachers Training College again, and I was accepted with terms and conditions at college to do the 3-year teacher training college in Bulawayo. I wanted to be a grade 1 infants teacher, and my major was Afrikaans, but they wanted me to do maths. But I said, no, I really wanted to pursue the Afrikaans, a second language, which I did. And the first year was tough. The first year was very, very difficult because trying to read and doing all the research. In that, I got a tape recorder that year, and a little bit of taping, recording could be done, which Cedric did for me. But in August, I went to Holland with my mum for a visit, and we went to see an ophthalmologist in Holland, a professor in Holland. Again, he could not explain the condition. He thought it was as a result of measles, which I had had at 2. He said, but let's try and show you some ocular devices to see if you can manage to see something. It started from little handheld magnifiers, and then they started with other equipment. And finally, I was shown this great big TV with a great big camera, a CCTV camera on it, and a zoom lens. I could see the print. It could enlarge print from 8 to 40 times, and I was able to read on this wonderful piece of machinery. Well, that was excitement number 1. But we lived in Rhodesia, a country with sanctions. To import anything from Holland was going to be a challenge, but nothing too big for my mum and dad. They sought the help of Waterfalls Lions in Salisbury, which they got. And Waterfalls Lions in Salisbury helped my mum and dad import this wonderful piece of equipment. And in my first year at college, I was not happy with my marks that I was getting for my projects and assignments. And one day I was really devastated, and I'd gone to fetch my assignment, and I just saw this mark, and I thought, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. And I was terribly tearful, and I thought I was all on my own at the academic block, but clearly not. A lady came up to me. Her name was Eileen Paul, and she said, what's the matter? I said, this is not good enough. I'm really not accepting this kind of thing. I don't quite know what to do. So she said, I can read for you, which was amazing. I had my tape recorder, cassette tape recorder. We would go to the library together. We would select all the literature. She would take it home and read for me. Then I would transcribe all of that read information, and I would do all my assignments from there. Eileen continued doing that for the next, until we finished 3 years later. And Cedric, of course, helped with all the projects all along the line as well. And I passed with distinction. My graduation was a very, very happy occasion. I got a standing ovation from all my fellow students. And all in all, yes, I had done it. And the college had really encapsulated my abilities, had certainly lifted me up with whatever abilities I had. I had life-saving diplomas from school already. And so instead of just doing the life-saving at college, I then became an instructor. I then became an examiner at college already. Same with my tennis diplomas. I had to do all these different things. The phys ed teacher was phenomenal. She said, your style is fantastic, but you just keep missing the ball. So I knew the theory, I knew what to do, and she was brilliant. We had an international examiner, and she, the phys ed teacher, was actually the ball boy. And she would literally, from behind me, she'd say, forehand, backhand. So I knew exactly what stance to take, could do this wonderful style, missed most of the balls, but the examiner thought this was amazing because I knew, could put my theory into practice and teach. Yes, that was really exciting, being able to do all those different activities as well, first aid, everything we had to learn. It was a very, very intense course at Bulawayo Teachers Training College. Then it came to the crunch. Where was I going to be posted? Because that was one of my conditions, was that after the 3 years, if they did not want to post me somewhere, I would have to pay back 3 years college. Well, I was posted to Redcliffe. Amazing. Again, thanks be to God. I was posted to Redcliffe, where the school was right next to the teacher's accommodation. I literally walked 100 meters to a gate and came onto the school premises. It was just, again, fantastic. A wonderful year, worked with wonderful teachers, shared a commune with other teachers, which were really, really wonderful helpers. We used to do all our prep together. When Cedric wasn't in the army, he was there to visit and help and assist and give his penny's worth. And in the next year, 1980, Cedric and I got married in Redcliffe. Then I moved to Shirley Hornby Nursery School. And within 3 months, I was made the headmistress at the nursery school. And that was a very nice time of growth as well. Cedric was then transferred to Kwekwe in the bank, where I got a teaching post again. And always transport. God just provides. He just makes a way. Within the first day, I had a lift with the headmaster to and from the school because it wasn't so close this time. In 1983, we had our first daughter, Carmen, because I had been told that my children would never get this condition. First it was bilharzia, then it was measles, but that's what I was told. So after 3 years of marriage, we had our first baby girl, beautiful baby girl. We then moved to the Lowveld, to the sugar estate, where Cedric was a buyer at the sugar estate. And within a short while, I saw the need in the Lowveld that moms needed to stimulate their children. So I introduced what was called the Playgroup Association. You don't pay, but you get a couple of mums together, and on a Monday, mum number 1 has all 5 children for 2 hours, then number 2 for... So you rotate. So you only have all the children 1 day a week, and the other 4 days the mums have a day off. It worked. Carmen didn't go to the other mums, but I wanted to get the whole system going, which is what happened. In that time, before Carmen was even 1, I had done a stint at the local school in grade 1 because the teacher had broken her collarbone, so they needed a relief teacher. So I did a 6-week stint there. The school was amazing. They found me a day mother, and I enjoyed my time there. A few months later, the nursery school teacher had a huge operation, so I did a stint there, took Carmen to school with me there because it was just a nursery school. And then the playgroup mum said, "No, we can't do this anymore. Come on, you need to do this all by yourself. We'll pay you." I said, "That's not the idea. That's not the idea at all. You're supposed to do this." No. So Cedric and I bought tables, chairs, proper paint, everything, and I ran the playgroup at home 2 hours a day, every day. But then I fell pregnant with my second daughter, Ashley. She was born in 1985, and I said, "No, I can't do this." They said, "No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're feeding or whatever. You have your baby, and all is well." So I carried on with the playgroup, and then the nursery school teacher was leaving town, and she asked if I would like to buy the nursery school. Well, when I say buy a nursery school, those children, 30, sat on wooden beer crates. There was one table. They painted on newspaper, not newsprint, and the premises were actually the back of the squash court, which was the company premises. Everything belonged to the company. You couldn't own anything in Triangle. Everything was owned by the company. Nobody owned their own homes. So Cedric and I agreed we would do that. We bought tables and chairs and proper paint and proper paper and books and equipment and toys for this new nursery school with 30 children now. Carmen came to nursery school with me because she was 4, but Ashley went to a day mum. So the day mum was out at the sections at the sugar estate, and she brought her little boy into town for the nursery school, and she took Ashley out to the farm every day as a day mom. So that was wonderful. They didn't have a daughter, so they were very happy to have our little girl. and the school carried on. But it was just so amazing. The community got so involved within the first term because obviously I had put so much in. The school just was helped by everyone. They made curtains for me. They painted murals on the walls. That was funny because it was at the squash court, it was at the sports club, and I thought the murals on the wall would be nice outside to let people know there was a nursery school. But opposite me was the golf course. No ways was the MD having murals painted on the outside wall. So we painted murals on the inside wall. We bought carpets, cupboards, everything. I developed a garden with the help of the section managers outside the little nursery school. We put up a fence outside the little nursery school. The section managers helped me build a sand pit at the sports ground. I even taught swimming with the help of parents because I could do the teaching of the swimming, but I really needed extra eyes there to help to make sure that all the children were safe all the time. So whenever I taught swimming in the school swimming pool, I had mums at each end just watching for the safety of the children as I was teaching swimming. Again, a very happy time. And then we moved to South Africa. And I thought I would start a nursery school at home. But then an opportunity came up. And this again, God just gives opportunities. And so often we say, no, not now. No. Take them in His strength. We can do all things. We can. We have to stand on the promises that we can do things. And an opportunity came up at an independent school, St. Francis College, and I was accepted. And off to school I went. Again, transport happened. I got lifts with teachers in and out of school. Then Carmen started school at the same time in South Africa. And she was doing very, very well. She did very well in grade 1, very well in grade 2. Ashley went to the Afrikaans English nursery school because I was hoping that she would learn Afrikaans well. And by grade 3, suddenly Carmen was doing what I was doing. She ran into pillars. She couldn't trace things properly. She was just not performing as well as she should be. I took her to 2 or 3 different optometrists. I was actually told by one that I was just a neurotic mother and what was I worrying about. Another person said, oh, this child's just overcompensating. And then an OT family member of ours came and she said, what's wrong with Carmen? I said, yeah, well, I've already been to 3 optometrists. She said, no, we'll make an appointment for you at Joburg Gen. I know somebody at the Joburg Gen who's an ophthalmologist, and let's see. Well, Carmen saw specialists and right up to Professor Welsh at the Joburg Gen. And yes, we figured then that Carmen also had a sight problem, which was not in our plan at all. That was not part of our plan. I was told my child would never get this. It wasn't genetic. My children wouldn't inherit this condition at all. So once again, Cedric praise God that Cedric also was baptized in full immersion of water, and as was my whole family, my mum, my dad, my sisters. God is good. He works in amazing ways, and God just helps us through everything. And that, yes, again, there were serious times, but Carmen, we kept her in mainstream school at Tom Newby School in Benoni. And then Carmen went to Pretoria Girls High School because we think maybe going to and from school would become more difficult. She did ride to school still, cycle. But thank the Lord that all went well for those years. And then she went to Pretoria Girls High School, where Carmen passed her matric very well. Carmen then went to Wits University and did a 4-year honours degree in speech and hearing therapy. She then did her community service here at Red Cross Children's Hospital in Cape Town, then worked at a private practice in Empangeni. Then she went overseas to Singapore and Ireland. Then she came back home again and opened her own practice. And she thought that would be slow. So she thought she would do her master's degree while this business of hers was taking off. Well, no such thing. She was also accepted for a 6-week exchange to the Philippines. Well, now she was accepted for her master's degree as well, and she was accepted to do puppy walking for guide dogs. So it became a very, very busy year because her business took off very quickly. Her master's degree, which her dad and a friend of ours, Don, did an awful lot of reading for her through through university and through her master's degree. Also, Carmen worked in the same way as me, but by then we had her own magnifiers and all of those things for her to be able to work with. I still have my same magnifier, that same old TV magnifier from 47 years ago. It needs some fixing every now and then. Cedric has to solder wires, but it still works. And yes, that's how we managed to do our studying. Then when Carmen went into hospitals, of course you can't carry a great big piece of equipment around with you like that. So she used a handheld machine, which we had to go and borrow money quickly to find something to help her. But God makes a way. He really, really does. So then I taught at St. Francis College, became head of department, and got involved in OBE lecturing again because I had certain views and liked my views to be heard. So I was at discussion groups, and then I was asked to actually do lecturing at OBE. After my school day, we did lecturing and preparing for this. In 2009, my eyesight was deteriorating, but of course I didn't even want to admit that. I could still do. I had found somebody to help me with my marking. I did all my assessing, everything on my TV magnifier. It was tough, and it took much longer. Everything takes longer. When you can't see, things take longer. But if you're prepared to put in the extra work, go the extra mile, you achieve what you wish to achieve. And yes, definitely all the helpers all along the way, fantastic. And Cedric has always been there to help when I'm so busy or doing things. The girls, fantastic. Carmen and Ashley grew up knowing, don't leave things on the floor, Mum will trip over it. Put your stuff away, and everything must go back to the same place, because if my spice is on the top right hand of the shelf, it must go back to the top right hand of the shelf. Contrast was a very big thing. A white tablecloth with a white plate on it is quite difficult to see at all. So darker tablecloths with white plates or the other way around help a lot. And all those kind of things, steps, you start learning your environment. Steps everywhere can become a problem, but it's to just memorize where and what and how to cope. Yeah, in 2009, when I was told that I could no longer teach, I was devastated. I absolutely was. But before I had even finished my term's notice, and that was very difficult because all I could tell myself is work as if unto God. That is what it's all about. Work as if unto God, give it your best, leave being the best, and that's what it's all about. I got an opportunity and was asked, my youngest sister had seen an opportunity to do accessibility train the trainer through Bloemfontein University, but she'd seen it through a Worcester site. And I applied, and I was allowed to do that. So when I left school, I actually did that in 2010. It was a 2-year course, but because I wasn't computer literate, Carmen used to set me up in the morning. I used to have my drink and my food next to me, because if this computer went off, I couldn't switch it on again. I couldn't get it to work again. I couldn't see to do it. I hadn't learned how to use all the accessibility aids on the computer, which, by the way, cost thousands and thousands of rands to even have a talking program on your computer, to have any enlargement equipment. It is a very expensive. That TV magnifier that I got then to replace now is about 80,000 rand. And so yes, it's a very expensive thing to have a disability. We are differently abled. We are not disabled. Yes, so we moved along with doing that course. And the 2-year course took me 7 months because I literally worked from 7:30 till when everybody came home. I just worked and worked and worked and worked, did not leave, because if I left that station, I knew that it would go off and I couldn't start again. I passed that with distinction and can do assessments, accessibilities in hotels, shopping centres, anywhere, and that has set me in good stead for what happened next. That same year in 2010, no, it was the following year, till 11, a friend of mine who I taught with, she had been on holiday with somebody who was visually impaired and played lawn bowls. And Suzanne came and she said to me, I've met this lady May. She plays blind bowls. I'm sure you can do that. I said, yes, well, how? Next week I was on the bowling green with them, never played bowls before. Never thought I could do that. Well, there it was. They showed me how to do it. And then that became an amazing, amazing opening for me as well, being able to participate. I went to national tournaments. You get categorized according to your eyesight. And in the beginning, I was told I was a B1, which is totally blind, but I thought I could still see a little bit. So I said, no, I don't want to do that. So I was a B2. And yes, I got, again, directors, people who offered to help. You have a director in blind bowls who tells you exactly what to do. They put the bowl in your hand with the bias the right way. They tell you the jack is at 25 meters or 27 meters. They tell you exactly how to stand to look at the bowl, for the bowl to go in the right direction. And in 2014, my director Alfie and we became B1 national champions, ladies champions. And in 2016, Cedric became my director. And that has been an amazing story because we've been able to do things together. Cedric was always on the sports field. He was the rugby player. He was the provincial hockey player. He was the squash player, the badminton champion. I always just participated. And now we were going to do this together. Well, 2016 was a very successful year. The national tournament in Kimberley, I won silver in the singles. I won gold in the pairs with Michiel Kruger from Bloemfontein. We went to Israel on an invitational tour. I won gold in the open pairs in Israel that year. Won silver in a Four Nations tournament. Silver in the singles and in the pairs in the Four Nations tournament. And ever since then, Cedric and I have played lawn bowls. That Cedric's my director, and I play bowls. He is a coach now and an umpire. But that is how we've moved forward. I've also done mid-mile mile, open water swimming, again with a sighted guide next to me the whole way. I started doing the open water swimming in 2003 with Gail. And yes, we did a very good time that year for me. I think we did 43 minutes. And talking the whole way, because Gail has to tell me, go left, go right, go around this one, go behind that one. Yes, so that's what we did. 2020 was my last mid-mile in the water, at open water. And my sighted guide, unfortunately, had to pull out at the last minute, and I got a different guide. Well, he clearly did not believe me that I could not see where I was going, because he'd go and help other swimmers. And by the time he got back to me, I was swimming back to the beginning, because I cannot see to have a focus to go forward onto. And in 2021, middle of COVID, I did the virtual swim in my own swimming pool, 160 lengths because it's a 10-meter pool. Well, 168 lengths, I think it is, with a Fitbit on because then you can record your whole swim. So yes, all in all, being able to participate and do and just be a part of everything and everyone. I've done counseling, Saida counseling, being able to help people with children who also have been diagnosed with vision loss, not vision loss, sight loss. We do not lose our vision. We might be losing our sight, but we have a vision. We have a purpose. We have a purpose in life, and God has given us all a purpose. We really have to share the word. We have to say and tell of God's marvelous deeds. And all I can say is to God be the glory. Thank you.